Today, we're not here to talk about the nuts and bolts of Pyure. We're not going to talk about our technology and our products. We're not even going to get into lab testing and efficacy performance, which, of course, is a really good story. The purpose today, of course, is to get perspective from one of our very good customers where Pyure was deployed in a dynamic and challenging environment. So hopefully you're at least somewhat familiar with Churchill Downs and how they use Pyure to enhance guest and employee experience. So we're going to sort of follow a Q&A format where you will hear direct from Chip Bach, and you're probably a little bit familiar with Chip from the earlier webinar that we did back in June. So I would encourage you as we go to type any questions into the chat window. And when we finish with our initial set of questions, we'll try and work through any question that you may include in the chat window. So with that, I'd like to, oh, and one more thing we do want to do is give a little bit of a sneak peek on how Pyure reduces viral transmission while saving up to 33% on energy spend. We're going to just introduce a study that was done by an ASHRAE fellow, and we'll have a follow-up webinar coming up on that in the coming weeks. Chip Bach is from Churchill Downs, and he is the general manager at Newport Racing Gaming, and this is where the site of the before and after performance testing was done. And he also is the general manager of Turfway Park Racing and Gaming. So thank you again, Chip, for joining us. And my name is Brent Vick, and I lead the sales organization at the Pyure company. I've been with Pyure for about a year now. All right, Chip, let's go ahead and get started.
All right.
So why did Churchill Downs initially decide to look for a solution like Pyure? And what was it you were trying to accomplish?
So, Churchill Downs, when we built Newport Racing and Gaming, I've been with Churchill Downs since this fall of 2019. And at the time they bought Turfway Park, which is a 61, 62-year-old racetrack. It was in long need of being demolished, which it since has been. And but they were also interested in putting in a strip mall in Newport, Kentucky, HRM machines, which are very similar to slot machines. So it's a little mini casino in northern Kentucky. We have in Churchill Downs, I wasn't involved in the initial planning and construction, but from what I understand, Churchill Downs was always looking for a better way to improve the environment for our guests. At the time, COVID was kind of going from a rumor stage to something that was actionable by the companies to start considering. But Churchill Downs, I believe, was looking for a method to defeat cigarette smoke. In northern Kentucky, we're allowed to have a smoking space within our facilities. We're not required to build a space that has fake walls and outdoor air. So within the HVAC, the confines of the HVAC system, they were looking for a solution to improve the air quality for people that were in a smoking environment.
Perfect, thank you. So CDI wants to provide the ultimate customer experience. What does that mean to you as the general manager?
So, I mean, it's incredibly important, obviously, for our guests to feel that they're in a very clean environment, that they're in a very safe environment. So there's a lot of factors that lead to guest satisfaction, obviously customer service from our team members, but the ultimate experience is, what's especially since COVID, people want to know that they're in a safe environment. And so as soon as they walk into a facility, they want that perception to be that it's very clean, including the air that they're breathing. So we when we opened Newport, and I had no experience with Pyure prior to, or hydroxyl generators prior to Newport. Actually, I honestly kind of thought there was a little bit of a voodoo thing. I was maybe a little bit of a hard sell on what the expectations were set for us by the company. I thought it was maybe overstated. I was used to using air filters and masking devices to spray some scent into the air. And when we opened Newport, again, which is not a traditional casino environment, it's a very, very old shopping center and lower ceilings. And, the moment you walked in after the system had been turned on, the air immediately affected you. It smelled, the air smelled very good. And it gave us that perception that the place was very clean. So, I mean, that when we win the hearts and minds of our guests in their first few steps in the door, that's incredibly important.
So how do you share with your patrons that Pyure is in use?
Well, it's a little difficult. Obviously, we, especially during the pandemic and the fact that our facility is much closer confines than your traditional casino, we worked with Pyure on some marketing bullet points to communicate in layman's terms to our patrons that we are employing we've spent the money to employ a very sophisticated system that would help defeat the virus, that defeats odors, and it also defeats them on surfaces, not only in the air, but on surfaces as well. And it's hard to discuss, and we kind of limited the number of people that would explain that had our patrons pursued it, because most of our people aren't scientists and have a very difficult time speaking specifically what goes on. I know we also made available to our patrons some links in our Facebook page and our website to drive people over where they could better educate themselves on the effects of the system.
So you mentioned that Newport is a property that offers smoking for guests, and you also commented about sort of your initial perception about Pyure and whether or not it's credible, and you mentioned voodoo technology.
Yes.
What else have you tried to mitigate smoke odors at other facilities?
So we at Turfway, we had some very, very old smoke eaters, the traditional smoke eaters. I know in some of our other facilities, even some of the more contemporary smoke eaters just didn't seem to work that well. It may have cleared up the air itself, but the equipment, the carpeting, and everything else still had a fairly strong smell of smoke. I know when we go to our competitors, especially in Indiana, where they're allowed to smoke, you do still get an overwhelming stale smoke smell from the furniture and from the carpet and everything else. Maybe it's cleared up in the air a little bit, but those are the things I'm used to. I know we had talked to some vendors about spraying some kind of odor into the air that would help mask the smell of smoke. And to me, that doesn't work very well either.
So you touched on this already a little bit, but what was the impact then of Pyure after smoking began at Newport?
So I think a lot of people were dubious about and I'm talking about more our team members. I don't know if most of our customers had an expectation, because again, it was hard to explain what we were doing. But our team members were a little suspicious about what those results would be. And again, we didn't start smoking right away because of the pandemic, but everybody commented on how clean the air smelled. And it was a theme going into the door. Our security officer, would try to explain, hey, yeah, we've got a special air, purification and system that nobody else has, because people were asking questions about it. And when we ended up smoking, we turned on smoking for a short time during the pandemic. Unless you were standing next to who was exhaling smoke from a cigarette, you just didn't smell it, you know, so that went a long way with our patrons as well.
So I know you've spoken about your wife's reaction to the difference Pyure has made. I think he commented about that in the video that we used in our June webinar. Can you
Yeah,
tell us a little bit more about that?
sure. So, you know, Kendra, my wife, when I worked for Turfway, we were a smoking facility. And again, it was a 60-something-year-old facility. And walking through the floor one time in Turfway, you would pick up the smell of smoke on your clothes. And she smoked in her 20s a long, long time ago. And she is a very ardent non-smoker, and she is very sensitive to the smell of smoke. And when I'd come home like that, she's like, "You're gonna have to strip down and, you know, keep those clothes in the mud room because they did smell pretty badly." Uh, so I knew she was kind of going to be a hard one to have her appreciate what we were doing at Newport. So the couple weekends that we did introduce smoking, and everybody was smoking, I made a point to be in that area for a couple hours every day. I'd come home and she did not detect it. She actually thought I was making it up. So a couple weekends in a row, she didn't detect the smell of smoke, and we started talking about why why it was working like that, and we ended up buying the whole house unit for our house. She was so appreciative of the system, and you know, so we went ahead and introduced it to our house system.
So you've thoroughly experienced the performance from Pyure, both at your facility at Newport and now at home. And now Pyure was just installed in the other facility that you manage, Turfway Park Racing and Gaming. So what did you learn at Newport that influenced the decision for Turfway?
Well, we learned that it works. You know, we learned that it's a real deal, that the science works. And we realize that it complements other efforts that we are making, you know, in terms of housekeeping, you know, keeping the facility at a ready state for our guest experience, customer service. So I believe the Pyure system is one of the spokes that is keeping our customers, and we are growing, by the way, at Newport Racing and Gaming, you know, at a clip of 35-40% revenue. We're seeing a lot of patrons come and stay. You had a picture in the last slide about our smoking area. So we did open a smoking only area that was completely separate from a non-smoking area. So our smoking guests have a place to go. That's been open since November, and you can go in there in the morning before our guests get there, and you can't tell that it's a smoking area. You know, that you don't get that secondary residue, that stale cigarette smoke, all that stuff. And I believe that's directly related to not only Pyure treating the air, but also treating the surfaces of that facility. And again, we have to keep up on our EBS side to make sure that things are vacuumed and wiped down, et cetera.
So I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I'm sorry. I was just going to say. So we've learned that, right? It's a pretty big investment. We have very smart people at Churchill Downs who initially investigated Pyure. You know, I didn't know anything about it until it was being actually brought into Newport Racing and Gaming, but at Turfway Park, which is a much bigger facility. I think Pyure had proven its value, and of course, the company made the investment to make sure that it and some other facilities in the company brand are carrying this Pyure system. I know I believe they're introducing it to Churchill Downs Racetrack, which is the jewel of all the facilities at CDI and some other facilities.
So it's a good segue. You touched on the next question I wanted to ask about, because you comment that it is a significant business decision. It's a significant investment, and in the end, it's about guest experience and longer visits, increased visitation, and ultimately guest retention. And you touched on this, but maybe you could just elaborate a little bit more. Do you believe that Pyure has been an instrumental part of improving these KPIs, these key performance metrics or
Yeah,
indicators?
absolutely. You know, I think, again, there's a holistic approach to the guest experience. There's a lot of things that we could do to deter the guests from coming back, whether it's rude behavior, bad food, or an unclean facility. But again, when people walk in and the first thing they're hit with is that fresh odor, that fresh sensation of fresh air. Already we have set them in a mindset that the place is clean, and again, we have other things to do to keep them there. But when you win them over within the first 5 seconds that they walk in, that's incredibly powerful.
And you touched on this already, but you're exceeding all of your business targets since you opened the facility. And again, part of that equation that leads to that guest experience is the Pyure solution.
That's right. So we opened in November, we opened the smoking only area. And because of COVID, I should go back a little bit. Because of COVID, we ended up stopping smoking in our facility because people, the non-smokers were upset that they had to stand next to smokers. The smokers were actually upset that people were pulling their masks down because of the fear of COVID to smoke. So we were winning nobody over with the combined area. We ended up identifying some space next to us, built it out, and made it a smoking only area. And since then, people, the first month we had a great bump in people coming over, but I think word of mouth about how nice our smoking section is and how clean people feel in it. We are seeing again our overall revenue going up, 35%, and of the facility, most of that is in that smoking area. So we're getting people from Indiana, from places in Ohio that people have to stand outside in outdoor kind of facilities where it may be humid or very cold, and come to our smoking area, and all the smokers are very, very impressed with it. And that, I think, is a direct result of our Pyure technology. Absolutely.
Yeah, and I know the company, Churchill Downs Incorporated, as you commented earlier, is looking to deploy more broadly in casinos and even the off-track betting locations. So they're seeing the return and the impact they're having on guest experience, guest satisfaction, and growth in the business. So it's a really great story.
Yeah,
Brian,
Churchill tested the system too. So we did at Newport. We tested the air before we turned the Pyure system on, measured it, then turned it on. And I believe the day we turned it on, our outdoor air was much worse than the day we tested our baseline test, and the air quality was significantly better. So our ownership, they're very smart people, and that's the type of thing they need to see before they'll make the investment.
So you've had a relationship with Pyure now for, I think, a couple of years. Can you just talk a little bit about how that experience has been, just interacting with Pyure, the company, and the product?
Yeah, sure. I am not a paid spokesman for Pyure. And if I had honestly, if I wouldn't be on this call if I had a bad experience. I wouldn't. My reputation's all I have. And the reason I'm willing to do this presentation is because the experience with Pyure has been so good. From the beginning, where they explained to us what the technology does, they explained to us how to operate and how it should be operated properly. The training that we brought in on the front end, when we needed help explaining to our patrons how Pyure can help mitigate COVID as well as odors. They got very creative. The company got very creative in helping us either create marketing collateral or actually creating some pathways to their science so people can research it. And then, we haven't had much experience on the service side because nothing is really, in 2 years, we haven't really seen anything break down. I do know when there's a yearly maintenance for changing out optics and things like that. And when the company came in, they were very sensitive to our hours. We're open 7 days a week, not quite 24 hours a day. We have a couple hours in between our night shift and when we open up in the morning. but the Pyure service team was very sensitive to our business, and they came in when those couple hours, a couple days in a row, instead of closing down pieces of our floor, areas of our floor, to change out those optics and get us back, do the maintenance work. So it's been very positive.
So if I was going to just sort of summarize a little bit, you had the new casino that you were going to open. You heard about indoor air quality, air purification technologies. You were a little bit skeptical, but the company decided to go ahead and make the investment. And you're seeing a really good return in terms of guest experience and overall business performance and the environment that you're providing to your patrons.
Yeah, and the company didn't know either. They didn't ask me. When they built this place, there's a construction team and that does this, and so there were obviously conversations ahead of that between Pyure, so they had an expectation of what they were going to see. But I remember there were some of those guys that put their career on, their reputation on the line by recommending it. They'd give me a daily phone call, and I thought it was. I wasn't sure even what the technology was, but I was kind of dubious about it. And so every day they'd call me up, and again, I wasn't saying I was surprised, but it met and exceeded the expectations I had, as well as those people up at corporate.
All right, Chip. So I want to now open it up to questions from the attendees.
So the first question is from Tom Darby, and the question is, what units are installed? Was the Mini 50s the first stage, or was this all done together in duct and with portables? So I feel like maybe that's more of a question for maybe a combination, but Brent, do you want to start with that? I know it's in the HVAC, it's MVP 14s.
Yeah, hi, Tom. So good question. These are all custom solutions that are built into the HVAC system using the MVP solution. So it's a sensing and controlled solution that's been deployed at the casino. We do have mini units that are in the executive suites at the racetrack, but in the casino, it's an installed custom solution.
Yeah, I know. Yeah. Churchill, when COVID hit, Churchill made we bought, I think, 3 of the mini units for our conference room and for spaces that were outside. I'm actually in a building that's not inside the casino property. So when COVID hit, we purchased a lot of the smaller units to put in conference rooms and places where people may collect, more than 1 or 2 people, our lobby and everything else, and they're still servicing those places. And I think that across the company, we bought a lot for a lot of our properties. Excuse me.
Awesome. And the second question is from Mateus. Is the whole casino covered or only the smoking area?
No, we have, it's not just for smoking. The entire casino is covered. And again, it's priceless when they walk into our facility. It's going into a non-smoking area. We have our restaurant right there. If you take a right, you go into a simulcast area, which is non-smoking, and then you go through a larger portion of the facility that's non-smoking. All the way in the back is our smoking section, and also back of the house we supply our air through the Pyure system for all those spaces. So, we look for it for a number of reasons, not just cigarette smoke, especially in the pandemic area, and just cleaning up the smell of any mildew. We're in a very old shopping center. We've had a lot of leaks, a lot of old walls and things like that, and it's overcome any of those smells that we had when we first opened up.
Oh, another quick question. Are you recirculating any air?
So we bring in a lot of outside air in the way our HVAC system works today, but we are recirculating air through our facility.
Awesome. Okay. That's it for the questions in the chat. So I think we can move on if you guys are ready.
Yep, I think we can sort of wrap this section up. Thank you again for doing this, Chip. It's a super important story because it takes the whole conversation out of a lab environment where we talk about efficacy as demonstrated in a controlled environment, which does matter, and we take the science part of this very seriously. But it's a difficult category to evaluate because there's a lot of misleading claims that you see. We believe that the testing we do at Pyure is very credible, but we think it carries a lot more weight when we see it deployed in the real world in a real application, which, as I said at the beginning, at Churchill Downs, it's a very dynamic environment with people coming and going, and it's challenging. It's a really important part of the equation for their guest experience. So I thought it'd be useful just to hear from a real life user on the impact Pyure can have in a real application. So Chip, we really appreciate you taking the time to do this. I know you're not a paid spokesperson for Pyure, but you really cover the key points very well. So thank you for doing that.
It's my pleasure. Like I said, you guys are doing a great job, and I'm glad that you're a partner of ours.
Okay, so thanks, Chip. I want to just pivot real quick. As I said at the beginning, we want to just offer a little bit of a sneak peek now to how Pyure can reduce viral transmission while saving energy. So as you can see on the screen here, we've worked with Kishore Kankari, who is an ASHRAE fellow and board member, to assess Pyure's efficacy using computational fluid dynamics model analyzing air movement in buildings. So I suspect some of you on the call are familiar with the CFD model. It's been validated and presented many times globally over the years and is highly respected by ASHRAE. The CFD model determines how many air changes are required in a building and how effective these different conditions are in purifying air with and without Pyure. So we've got a short video just to introduce this concept. As I say, we will schedule a follow-up webinar with Kishore to go through this in a little bit more detail. So look for that notification. But we thought we would take the opportunity now to at least introduce what's happening here. So Adrian, if you could, just let's play the short video and then we'll wrap things up. Okay, thank you for that. That is a brand new video that we just produced, by the way, and it's the first time we've shared it externally. And we're really looking forward to getting that story into the marketplace. We will be scheduling a webinar in the coming weeks, and we're hoping that you'll be able to join us. So The Churchill Downs story, I know if you were not able to attend the webinar back in early June, you're hearing about some of this for the first time. There is a detailed report available. You can find it on our website at pyure.com/Churchill Downs. I would encourage you, if you haven't already done so, to download that. It provides a lot more detail on how they applied it and the impact that the Pyure solution had with their casino. And at the beginning, I said that the purpose of the call here wasn't to get into a lot of the detail about Pyure and our technology and our products. We'd be happy to do that. If you'd like to have a follow-up conversation to understand more about our products and our technology and how we can work with you and your customers at solving the most challenging air purification needs, we'd very much like to have a meeting with you. So please just drop us a line at sales@pyure.com and we will set up a follow-up meeting. So we're going to wrap up early. Thank you again for joining us. I know it's really hectic and everybody's super busy, so carving out an hour or even a half an hour is a really big deal. So thank you for doing that, and we will talk again soon. Bye now.